the former Sheriff of Milwaukee County, Sheriff David Clarke. Welcome to Better for America.
Thanks. It's my pleasure to be on with you.
Thank you, Sheriff. In your book, Cop Under Fire, you argue that law enforcement officers are under attack from various sources, including the media, politicians, and activists. And what gets lost really is a meaningful discussion of the reality and the environment that really is breeding crime in the first place. So in your opinion, what is the underlying factor that results in such high rates of crime, and why does the media do what they do?
Well, culture is one, I think. I also think that crime happens at rates that a community shows it'll be tolerable with, how much they'll tolerate it. In other words, if you have soft on crime policies, if you don't adequately punish people for unwanted behavior, you're going to get more of it. It's a simple rule of behavior. You want less behavior of a certain thing, you punish it, you'll get less. If you want more of a positive aspect of behavior, you'll get more of that. So we kind of flipped this around. We're doing the opposite right now. The crooks and the criminals are being made out to be victims, and the police, as you indicated, they're made out to be the bad guy.
That's a very good point. And one of the things that I loved about President Donald J. Trump was he tried to highlight the heroes that are out there every day, putting their life on the line in order to protect U.S. citizens. And they certainly are under-recognized. And I want to ask you a little bit about the way that the left depicts President Donald Trump. I know that you're a vocal supporter. And prior to his presidency, Trump was praised by prominent Black Americans, such as the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who thanked Trump for his support in helping minority-owned businesses. And then he was awarded with the Ellis Island Award alongside Rosa Parks and Muhammad Ali. We then saw his administration sign the First Step Act, which aimed to address mandatory minimum prison sentences and overcrowding federal prisons. And I think a big effect of the act was that it reduced sentences for low-level drug offenses, which have historically affected communities of color. So, sir, when you see the media try to paint him, Donald Trump, as a racist, after a lifelong track record suggesting otherwise, what is your response to that?
Well, first of all, the goal of these anarchists, and that's who's leading this thing, is to weaken America's ability to keep crime under control. They advocate for anarchy and chaos, for heaven's sakes, and that's what criminal behavior is. So Donald Trump comes along, and he has a huge platform, right? And so he started to recognize and to develop a narrative about the American police officer. They go out every day, put on the uniform of their community to go out and protect and serve. And that gets in the way of this anti-police movement. And Trump, with that big platform, they had to go after him because he was one of the few, with that big a platform anyway, that was supporting the courage, the commitment, the sacrifice made by the American police officer.
Thank you so much. And that is exactly what we saw here. I think American people are waking up and recognizing that certain people, perhaps, George Floyd, folks like Eric Gardner, lauded as heroes in American society today. And they're even described as martyrs to our children. But the attention span is really a zero-sum game, because prominent figures such as Tom Sowell and Joseph Rainey, they get virtually zero recognition because the way that they contributed to society as Black Americans doesn't seem to fit the mainstream narrative. So on the topic of those who do good deeds that are underappreciated, what sort of under-the-radar people influenced or inspired you throughout your life up to this point that don't really get the recognition that they deserve?
Well, first of all, it's my father. He's my first role model. And I go through that in the book. And that's why I encourage people to read the book, because it'll give you a deep dive into why I am the way that I am, why I have the positions I do, what influenced me in terms of behavior and character. But I want to flip back a little bit to two of the people that you named: George Floyd, Eric Garner, I can go on, Freddie Gray, Mike Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. These guys are crooks, for heaven's sakes. And I'm not here to suggest that they deserved to die in the fashion they did, but they contributed to their own demise because of their behavior. And I find it sickening that the black community would exalt these individuals, George Floyd, Freddie Gray, Eric Garner, Mike Brown, as if they're some sort of heroes in the history of black civil rights, in the history of black America. I go back to a time when I looked at people like Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., upstanding citizens first, for heaven's sakes. Rosa Parks, I can go on and on. Those are the people that used to be held esteem in the black community as people to model yourselves after. We have flipped this thing so hard on its head that now we're honoring people, making statues and memorials for crooks, for heaven's sakes. I mean, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Can't they find people who, and I'm talking modern day people, Eagle Scouts. I know one in Wisconsin, a black Eagle Scout. You know, you look at the people who've gone off to war, the modern wars I'm talking about. My dad, by the way, fought in Korea in the U.S. Army. He was an airborne ranger. But you look at those people, those are the ones that we need to be showing our young people, hey, here's what you should aspire to. Here's how you should behave. Here's how you should conduct yourself. Instead, we're honoring common criminals.
I really appreciate you, being so bold and having the courage to speak out. I think there are so many people who entirely agree with you, but it's a tough world in which we live, and so many people are silenced if they don't go along with mainstream. Now, sir, you're also a vocal critic of the Black Lives Matter movement, and as they have never been shy, right? They've never been shy about their anti-police rhetoric. And the media is so quick to deem anyone who doesn't support Black Lives Matter. They call us racists. And meanwhile, Black Lives Matter is really rooted in this Marxist foundation. So we know what they're all about, but the movement clearly bears some responsibility, I believe, for the hostility between citizens and law enforcement over the past few years. What do you think will be the most effective strategy to improve relations between law enforcement and the general public? And do you agree that the Black Lives Matter movement is hurting those relationships?
Well, first of all, let's start with Black Lives Matter. As you indicated, they are a Marxist group. They advocate for the killing of police officers. They're a hate group, for heaven's sakes. And I wish they would be named as such by the Southern Poverty Law Center, but we know why they're not. It's not a force for good. They don't care about black life. If they did, they'd be in Chicago right now. They'd be in Milwaukee. They'd be in St. Louis. All of these other cities, Washington, D.C., with high rates of violence, street violence, for heaven's sakes, claiming the lives of oftentimes, good law-abiding black people who get in the way of a gang shootout, a drive-by shooting, a drug deal gone wrong. And they're nowhere to be found. They should be posted at every abortion clinic in America because Planned Parenthood kills more black babies than any other demographic. So if they wanted to live up to their name that Black Life Matters, then that's where they would be, not attacking the police. Now, as to how do we improve police-community relations? First of all, there's a myth, I call it, that the relationship between residents in these low-income ghettos, I call them, and the police. That is not true. And it's born, if you just look at some of the research, and I always do my homework first. I always look at the research before I open my big mouth, unlike some of these other blowhards that are out there. You would find that surveys show in excess of 60 and there's 70% of black residents who are surveyed about the relationship with the police. They're satisfied with it. They want more police, not less. And so when I look at those things, that's what tells me, we're always in this quest for improving community relations. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's already good, but that's being destroyed by this distorted narrative about the American police officer. And I say this, there's only one group in America that cares more about the lives of black people, and it's the American police officer who goes out every day risking their lives to try to bring peace and calmness to a very chaotic environment. It certainly isn't Black Lives Matter. That's why I've renamed them Black Lies, Lies, Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, Sheriff, we agree because it's so rooted in this Marxist idea that people should be divided and that there is an oppressor and an oppressed, that there is a victim and someone who's victimizing, and wanting us to move away from merit-based being moving along and finding your place in this world based on what you contribute to society, based on who you are, not the color of your skin. And our over 2 million AMAC members stand with you and look forward to helping to get the truth out there. And it's something that all of our listeners, I encourage our listeners to check out amac.us. We have so much great information that we're publishing there, and we certainly are involved in this fight. Sheriff, we appreciate you so much for joining us. I God bless you and thank you. I'm encouraging everyone, too, to check out your book, Cop Under Fire. Sheriff, we really, truly cherish your input. These are such important matters. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
It's my pleasure. Look, it's a fight every day, and there's no finish line to this fight. I remind people that all the time. You get some victories here and there, some wins, but this fight has to be ongoing because the left, they will never give up in their quest to destroy this country. And so prepare for the fight.
Prepare for the fight. And you are making a difference. You're inspiring so many. When one man, one woman steps out in faith with courage, it inspires so many people around them. So thank you, sir. You are a true leader.
My pleasure.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can listen to more just like it. Check us out on iTunes, Spotify, or by downloading the AMAC app. Don't forget to follow us on social media. Until next time, I'm Rebecca Weber. This is your podcast, Better for America. Thank you for being here. Have a wonderful evening.